Hey, Deb. Hi, Sarah.
Hello.
Hello.
I won't be on the call long. I have another call at 12:30.
Well, thanks for joining us.
You shaved your beard since I saw you last.
Hey, Yvonne. I haven't had to tie a tie. I haven't done that in a while.
Hi, all.
Hello. I like your background a lot better. I'm at your
Yeah.
office, Yvonne.
Yeah, I am by far in my favorite Zoom conference room so far this year.
You cut out, Yvonne. We couldn't hear you.
Oh, I'm out hiking the Badlands with friends. So I'm in a nice conference room.
Uh-oh. She froze.
Yep.
Not a good sign. So that's the office, Deb. I don't think I've ever been in your actual office.
Well, we're still closed to the public until Monday. So
Ah.
anytime, just give me a shout and I'll give you a tour.
Same with ours. We're not that far from you.
I've been in your offices. Municipal League. I've been in the office here and now.
Yeah.
In Pier. You're in Pier, right?
Yeah, Fort Pierre to be
Yeah,
technical.
Fort Pier. Yeah, I've been in that office a few times.
Dave, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
I talked to Lauren about 2 hours ago, so he'll be ready.
Well, I'm going to sit here and eat and not show you my face while we're doing this. So you look great, Deb and Dave. Thanks for sharing video of what you look like, because the rest of us,
Yeah.
I have a great face for radio.
So Dave, your youngest, she must be finishing up her sophomore year of high school.
Senior, they age quickly.
So she's gonna be a senior next year.
Yeah. We gotta do the college tours this summer, Deb. That's scary. Our baby will leave the nest.
Wow.
She's preparing us for it.
I'm sure.
Not like a teenager would have attitude.
Oh,
Ah, there's the fearless leader. Hey, Matt.
Hi there. How's everybody today?
I don't know about fearless leader. He's filled with,
That's
anxiety.
true. That's true.
A leader, definitely.
Lisa, that's true. That's why that's why we contact you as our employment law attorney, because we're afraid of those employees.
I don't see Lauren on yet. Oh, did Yvonne jump off, get cut off?
yeah, it sounds like her bandwidth isn't picking up real well.
Yeah, it wasn't.
That's been my
Lauren's at
problem my
Lake
whole life.
Ponset, so we'll have some challenges with both of them.
I don't know, Dave. I'm here. Can you hear
Oh,
me?
you are there?
Oh, there. We just don't see you.
We
Okay.
don't see
Yeah.
you. There you are. Oh, you're under Tracy Brad. Aha, now I got you. You're
I
the
was
other
taking a-
Tracy Bradford. Now I got it. Phew.
Are you in the Badlands, Yvonne?
I am. I'm out hiking with friends today. So I'm in a beautiful conference room.
Good for you.
Actually, I was on a conference call this morning with a friend of mine in Minnesota, And she had her pictures from the Badlands up as her background. And several people
Oh.
commented, "Where are you?" And she said, "Badlands." I mean, obviously she's in St. Paul today, but she had all her Badlands photos up behind her, and I loved it.
Yeah, I could do a little scan for you.
Sweet. Oh. Beautiful.
My screen is showing that Tracy Bradford is on here about 7 times.
Ah, there's Lauren. Now I see him.
Lauren, you're on mute.
There we go. All right, now I'm good.
One Fifely's bad enough, Lauren. You have the label. Sorry, man.
Oh, you know what I think happened? So that link, I bet that link I sent out this morning, anybody that clicked on that to access this meeting,
It's Tracy.
is
Bradford.
showing up as Tracy Bradford. So that's kind of interesting.
That's fun.
Oh, I'm David. Great.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
incognito.
Well, that makes sense because I sent Lauren and Yvonne the link. That's yeah, there we go. Now I'm
Yeah.
getting it.
So anybody that registered is showing up with their name, but anybody that clicked the link that was sent out at the last minute here, it was showing up as Tracy. So that's all right.
We spend a lot of money with our registration, so I want a refund.
You'll especially want one after you hear us. No offense, Yvonne and Lauren, but
Yeah. Hi, Yvonne.
Hi, Lauren.
Where are you?
Badlands.
Oh, okay. Are you out hiking?
Yep.
Well, super.
Yeah, it's beautiful here. Perfect day.
Yep.
Well, it looks like it's 12:04 on my clock, and so in the interest of keeping everybody on task here and respecting everybody's time, I just want to thank everybody for being here. I'm going to turn it over to Dave Fifely, and then I think he's going to act kind of as a moderator, maybe introduce the other 2 panelists and maybe tell us a little bit about himself. But I just want to take the opportunity here to recognize Dave for the invaluable resource that he is and has been, and I hope he will be going forward for public lawyers, whether you're, and lawyers in general, whether you're insured by the Public Assurance Alliance or not. If you're not, I imagine he'll try to sign you up, but just an invaluable resource for our state. So I'm going to turn it over to Dave. Thanks everybody for being here.
well, thanks, Matt. An undeserved introduction, but I appreciate it. I'm Dave Fifely. I'm with the South Dakota Public Assurance Alliance, and we cover property and liability for about 85% of the local governments in South Dakota. As guests today, we have Yvonne Taylor, who is the Executive Director of the Municipal League. Then we also have Lauren Pankratz, who has been a lobbyist for 38 years. And Lauren has also done some lobbying for the counties over many years. We apologize, but Bob Wilcox had a medical issue arise and he was unable to attend today. I'm going to just let Yvonne and then Lauren kind of introduce themselves and then talk a little bit about their legislative experience over several decades. Yvonne, we'll let the ladies go first.
Okay. Yes, Yvonne Taylor. The Municipal League, of course, is the Association of Cities and Towns in South Dakota. I have been the executive director since 1996. And before that, had worked for the league for 3 years prior to that. So it's pretty much all I've ever done. And I've been a lobbyist for pretty much that entire time. So I don't have Lauren's years, but I'm getting up there. I guess you just want introductions right now, Dave?
Perfect. Lauren?
Well, good morning all. And David, thanks for the invitation. I've been doing this since 1984 and lobbying. Initially, I came out there with the South Dakota State Medical Association and then went as a private contractor later. So I've had the chance to work with Yvonne over the years and gotten to know David back even from his time in Sioux Falls before his current position. So yeah, it's been a lot of things have changed over the years, and I would suspect that Yvonne would agree with that from just the way the legislature works, or on many days doesn't work, but the personalities have changed, the mindsets changed. And I think a lot of that's as a result of term limits, which I wasn't ever in favor of. I think voters get to decide how long you serve. So anyway, I've been doing the contract lobbying and whatnot. I also had, I was, before I got into lobbying, I was a state DCI agent. Bill Jankel hired me in '76. And then I was a polygraph examiner for 35 years. I quit that about 10 years ago, I guess. Maybe not quite that much, but, and then I had a private investigation business as well. So I've gotten out of just about everything, but I've got to do something. Otherwise, I'm going to have to give my wife the key to the gun cabinet.
Lauren, why don't we start with you? You've been lobbying for 38 years, and congratulations on a long career. Why don't you tell the group what your impressions have been of the status of the legislature in terms of their dealings with local governments, because you have certainly appeared before the legislature many times on behalf of counties and other local governments. And tell us over that 38 years, what you've seen as far as that relationship goes between the legislative body and local governments, and share any specific insights you may have over the years.
Well, thanks. And Yvonne, jump in anytime as well, or if I say something foolish, well, or if I say something wrong. The two are different.
That's a broad invitation, Lauren.
I think one of the places that I would start is, I first went out there in 1984, and at that time, people got in touch with their legislators if they wanted to communicate with them. Both the Senate and the House had a separate phone number. They still do. And you would call and leave a message, and they would take that message and put it on one of those old spindles, the pointy metal shaft, and stick it on the legislator's desk, or they would send them a fax. And so their communication was considerably less than it is today. And I don't know that they were less informed, the legislators. They had a good feel for their districts. People at home knew them. They sent them to Pierre to do their work. They trusted them to get it done. In today's age, with social media and emails, cell phones, legislators are bombarded every day with things from constituents and even people from other states. And I'm yet to understand why somebody from New York thinks that anybody in South Dakota is going to give a shit what they think, but they will still reach out to them. And I mean, I know legislators today that almost give up on reading their emails because they can't get through it all. And so they, in some respects, it almost makes the lobbyists maybe more important, because they just don't have the time to be able to go sort through all of that stuff and sort through the legislation, go to their committee meetings. And so they just, some of them have to take the approach that if it's really important, somebody's going to tell me about it. Or whether that's another legislator, lobbyist, a government official, you know, somebody from a city office or county office. And so I think that's been a big change. The contact, the social media part, and then, as I mentioned earlier, the term limits. They don't have an opportunity now to learn from their peers who have been there, and I'm speaking of legislators. They show up, and the first day they're there, they have to start running for some position because they've got 8 years, 4 terms to get it done, and they don't have time to learn how the process works. They don't have time to learn how to develop leadership skills, committee chair skills. And I think that hampers the process. I mean, it's not completely going down the drain, but I'm not sure that it is working as effectively, maybe as it did in the past with less communication. And I think the last thing I'll say is I think there are more legislators that are coming out there with single agendas. And that might be that they want to fix something for their county commission, their city council, their school district, or whatever it is, a social or political, but they have an agenda, and that agenda then is what impacts many other decisions that they make. And they also find many things to not care about because it's not their deal. And I don't think that's necessarily good public policy. So I'll end the lesson there.
Thanks, Lauren. Yvonne, you want to, that was a good overview of kind of the global perspective of the legislature dealing with constituents. Do you want to narrow it down to public sector, Yvonne, in terms of how you've seen that relationship unfold over the years?
Yeah, I would agree with everything Lauren just said. I think that was all very correct. The only thing I might add is the other thing you're seeing, and it's the same in just society at large, is the social media has made it so mean and so personal that I think we're having a really hard time drawing good candidates because good people have better things to do with their time. As local governments, you know, I can't complain too much about how we're treated, other than there are things that are just off the table now that used to be worthy of at least good discussion. You can't come in and talk about a tax, no matter how popular it might be, no matter the good work it could do. It's just we used to have hours and hours and hours of tax committee study meetings. And now you don't even need them because the answer is just no.
Yeah.
And as far as the single issue thing has kind of fallen into the local control issue too, where local control is all great unless it interferes with their particular singular issue, and then that's a very selective argument. Then they say it all the time, but they don't mean it very often. But that's all I'd really add to Lawrence. He gave an excellent summary of where we're at.
Well, and David, I'll follow up on Yvonne's comment there. To take it to maybe even a very specific example, this year during session, there were two different, there were several bills that came forward, and Yvonne took the lead on both of them, I think, as I recall. One had to do with being able to have meetings by Zoom, and nobody would, and I might get some of the dynamics wrong, but that they could be from their home. They would post their notices at the city hall or the courthouse, but there wouldn't have to be somebody in person at the government office. And I sat in there and I listened to the debate, and one of the things, and I'm fairly certain Yvonne was there as well. I was really surprised at how some of the legislators on the committee were saying, well, how are we going to trust that these city councilors or county commissioners are actually going to follow the agenda? How do we know that they're going to be participating and whatnot? And I thought that some of those comments were really disparaging, coming from someone who is elected by, in their respective districts or communities, by the same people that voted for the county commissioners and the city councilors and the mayors. How
And Lauren,
distrustful they were.
Lauren, the same people that go into a secret meeting that the public isn't allowed to attend before every session, where they make their decisions before they go to the floor and vote.
Exactly. I was taken aback by some of the newer legislators and the notion that the city government and county government was just going to not pay any attention to what anybody else is doing and whatnot. And some of the, like I say, some of the disparaging remarks. But that's also an indicator of kind of what we're dealing with our elected officials. Some of them, not all of them, but some of them in peer, they just really have no experiences of their own.
So before we go on, just use the chat feature if you have any questions of either panelist. I have it pulled up on my screen and I'll watch for it. And at the appropriate times, I will interject those questions so Yvonne and Lauren don't have to watch for the chat room. But again, any questions at any time, please feel free. For both of you, I don't think we can go on a legislative talk without discussing the marijuana issue. I'm going to first have Yvonne at least address that as far as local governments, and in a nutshell, what was the marijuana landscape this year? And I guess our favorite joke is you can't have a meeting without doing weed. So I'll turn it over to you, Yvonne.
Yeah, it was a much discussed and no action issue this year. It got 70%, especially on medical marijuana. 70% of South Dakota voted for it. I think only 3 counties voted against it. And so the legislature had zero interest in trying to undo it. They were very hesitant to do anything that looked like they were doing another IM 22 where they would repeal and replace. They wanted none of that. We thought we would get a delay at least on the effective time of it, but in reality, it is delayed until the state can adopt their rules, and they have until October 29th, I think, to do that. There was an article in the news today. A county commissioner and a couple city commissioners in the Sioux Falls, Minnehaha area are taking exception to the draft ordinance that we sent out yesterday, seeing it as saying it's an attempt to maybe thwart the will of the voters or impose a delay, when in reality, all it is doing is recognizing the timeline that's in place in IM 26. So we'll see if that gets any legs or not. It's the usual suspects, I think, as far as the people that are crying foul. It's something that I think the public doesn't understand what they've done. I think it's widely misunderstood to be recreational or semi-recreational, when in reality, I think that we're going to end up with a very narrow medical marijuana system in South Dakota. And I guess we'll see what the Supreme Court says about recreational. But I know we have cities that have said they've got people coming into City Hall already saying they want to open a dispensary, and that just shows a complete lack of understanding of what was actually passed. And so I think we put together a pretty good model right now, and we plan to do more of an administrative package shortly, and going into it, I guess, eyes open and trying to keep our folks as aware as possible of what's going on.
Lauren, on the county side of things, was there anything in particular on the marijuana issue that you want to add?
I think the one of the aspects is that on a couple of our board calls during session, initially I was thinking that the cities are probably more concerned about the how it's going to roll out, because that's where most of the activity in terms of sales are going to occur, legal sales, let's say. But I was surprised that there were a number of county commissioners that were concerned about, how it was going to roll out, and just exactly, what were their responsibilities going to be out in the county, and what sort of enforcement, and that sort of thing. And so I think the state is taking the right approach, to move into it slowly, because all the states are different. And so we can point at one state or another and say it's done better or done worse, or we're going to do like theirs. But in the end, it's still local. The other part that I guess I would say is that it was interesting to watch the division between the legislature and the governor's office over what the voters intended. And the governor never made any bones about the fact that she didn't want any of it. And when she would try to stonewall things, the legislature would push back in support of the voters, even legislators that weren't in favor of it personally. They believed that public vote should stand, and it was clear. And there was more than one occasion when I thought that the legislature, or even a slim majority of them, might fold under some of the gubernatorial pressure, but they did not. To the point where she said she was going to have the governor was going to have a special session, and leadership in the legislature said, no reason, it ain't changing.
Yeah, I think the Senate told her we're not coming.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That was
Never dance without a dance partner. We have a question, you two. We're going to have lots of questions from Tracy Bradford today. While I understand that the issue is presently before the South Dakota Supreme Court, is there any plan for the municipal league to prepare a temporary ordinance on amended A, the recreational marijuana issue?
Yeah, I think we have our work group that is set up, and any city attorneys that are interested in participating in that, please let me know. We are happy to add you. But I think we've always got recreational in the back of our mind as you're developing medical. And in most states where they did medical first and then recreational next, it was the medical base that kind of converted to being the recreational. I really wish we had a decision so we could, if we're going to do them both, I wish we could do them together so that we could set up a program that makes sense. The two measures conflict in some places. And if the constitutional one holds, obviously that's the one that's going to rule. So it would be better if we got that decision sooner rather than later, so that we could put them together in a more comprehensive system. But I think we've got it in the back of our mind always that our medical may morph to recreational.
Just for everyone's information, in case you aren't aware of it, the counties, the municipal league, and the SDPA did retain Rich Williams and the Gunderson Palmer law firm, who issued a legal memorandum on just kind of the legal landscape for both Amendment A and IM 26. If you have not seen that through one of your clients yet, please get a hold of me and we'll make sure that we get that to you right away. It's for wide dissemination. So that gives some kind of good groundwork of what to go off of as you're helping your public entity client dealing with this issue.
Everything is posted on our website also, Dave, under the library tab. There's marijuana legalization resources, I think it's what it's called. So.
Thanks, Yvonne. Sorry, Lauren, is there anything else you want to add on that?
Nope, she covered that well. The only thing would be is that, have you provided that document you were talking about from Rich Williams to Chris or Bob?
Yes, the
Yeah.
counties
Okay.
have it also. And
Okay,
then it went
good.
out in an email blast to all of the pool members, so probably
Okay.
95% of you should have it already.
Okay,
Bob's also on our work group, Lauren.
yep.
Moving on from marijuana, I know there were some other unique bills. I think this session could be summarized more as things that didn't happen is the real story versus what did happen. And I know both of you dealt with a bill, House Bill 1093, regarding what local governments could do versus the State Department of Health. If you two want to discuss that one for a moment.
Go ahead, Yvonne.
Yeah, that was one that we could not do anything more than the Department of Health had done. And it was, in response to any kind of mask mandates, limited though they were in South Dakota, even at the local level. And actually the Department of Health didn't like it, but didn't come and have a position on it. The hospitals did come in on our side and oppose it with us. That helped. I don't know if we could have stopped it without the hospitals. But it also helped to take them kind of through the timeline of the executive orders that passed at the time, and show them that, we were all doing the best we could do at the time, and you don't want to tie people's hands like that. It was an unprecedented situation for everyone who's still alive today since the last pandemic, and so it was able to be defeated, and I guess I'm grateful for that.
Lauren, anything to add on that one?
Nope.
Very good. I know there was also an amendment on that particular bill regarding martial law. How did that play out as you were watching the process unfold?
Was it on that bill, or there was a separate bill that said we couldn't do anything to protect the public health or suppress disease unless martial law had been declared?
It was that one. There was an amendment to that,
Yeah.
1093.
Okay, I'm not recalling that one, Dave.
Very good. There was another bill about requiring local governments to pay businesses back if you had them closed due to the COVID-19. That was Senate Bill 137. Either one of you have any insights on how that legislative process played out?
I thought it was ironic that it was brought by a business owner in a city that didn't shut anything down. So there would have been no way to measure what was due to just people's natural caution and not going places anymore, versus what was the impact of any kind of local regulation. But in the case of the guy who brought it, there was no local regulation. So that one was not that difficult to beat. It didn't take into account any money that they had received from the federal government with the business grants, and it was just a mess from the word go. But
And I guess the only thing I would add to that is that, every now and then you have an exception to the rule. And I think that one was the exception to the rule, is that there's no such thing as a bad idea.
Very good. Moving on, unless there's any questions, there was some attempts at the state level to regulate local food truck ordinance and regulation. How did that play out in terms of the local versus the statewide regulation? And
that one actually came from the governor's office, although her name wasn't on it, and neither were really her fingerprints much. But very much pushed by one of her top staffers at the time. She's now departed, but and it came from a national group, kind of on the line of the stuff Lauren was talking about right at the beginning. Several of these measures were things that were coming from some sort of a national think tank. But yeah, food truck regulation isn't really one of South Dakota's biggest problems. So that one was not hard to defeat at all, and we actually even had a little fun with it. So.
kind of related to that, there was also some attempt by some in the legislature to prohibit any local regulation of food, home-based food businesses if they produce less than $150,000 of product in an annual year. Was that a similar type of legislative discussion as was the food truck?
Yep, and it was also exactly another, I think it might have been the same national group that came up with that great idea. And our point was just think what happens to your zoning, trying to keep commercial out of residential if you can run $150,000 bakery out of your home kitchen. But yeah, it was the same line of thought, I guess.
Not seeing any other questions on what we've discussed so far. Let's move to another topic that certainly has been on everyone's mind over the last year, the COVID-19 issue. And there was House Bill 1046 that will provide a liability protection for exposures to COVID-19. Tell us how that discussion played out at the legislature.
Lauren, I've been talking a lot.
Well, yeah, and this one, I think this was, if I remember right, this was David Anderson's legislation, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, he's a insurance man, and he's got an insurance business in Canton, and it was an interesting proposal, I guess, because and it was difficult to read. That's another rule, is that if you make your legislation too long and too complicated, it could be the best idea in the world. Neither one of two things will happen. Nobody will read it and pass it, or no one will read it and kill it. and that's sort of what happened here.
Just for the group's confirmation, you are both correct. It was Representative Anderson that did introduce that. I've got the copy of it right here. So you're right.
Yep.
Dave, you're much more of an expert on the content of it than probably either, or not even probably, no, definitely more than I am.
Well, I can tell you on our level, we have not seen any claims against any of our members regarding the COVID-19 issue so far. I'm knocking on wood. This was modeled, I believe, after the state of Iowa that had similar legislation. We'll certainly watch for any Iowa court decisions that might illuminate what a court would interpret for this language. But overall, I think there's a high comfort level that this should protect all the public entities in particular regarding COVID issues. It is very long and complex. I read it months ago, and frankly, I've forgotten far more than I remember of it, but it's certainly worth a read as you're going through and advising one of your public entity clients in terms of what they can expect. But the good news is we have not seen this so far. Nationally, in a lot of meetings with public pools, I think the issue is more in the workers' compensation area regarding public employees and exposure to COVID-19 versus any third-party claims against the public entity itself. So that's what we've seen so far on the COVID-19 issue. All right, not seeing any questions on that. There was an Act 10, House Bill 1094 regarding municipal zoning and appeals process. Looked like they did some revisions to that. Was there much that they asked of either the counties or the municipal league regarding that bill in particular for either of you?
Yeah, it was modeled on last year's county bill that they brought through. And that again this one came from the governor's office. I think it was a governor's bill. It really did very little on the city side. It was kind of funny because I think the part that did not pass for the counties last year was the majority vote of those present rather than the majority of those on the whole committee of the Board of Adjustment to pass something. I think that part got taken out on the county side, but it passed on our side. So that was the substantial change. It also set up special use provisions that are optional, that would allow the accelerated way through the process for things that have that permit granted by a municipality. But it was a little unnecessary on the city side, just because counties, of course, are dealing with CAFOs and things like that, and it just isn't that kind of an issue in city limits.
Going back to COVID, sorry, we have a question. If a municipality did not spend the total allotment with the first CARES Act monies that came from the state, is the amount of the unspent allotment still accessible, or is it gone?
It's gone. It rolled back up to the state, and I think they spend it on, I don't know what, broadband or something.
I'm glad you knew the answer, Yvonne. Thank you. I rarely know the answer, but I know who does know the answer, is my claim to fame.
Yeah, that's ours too. There is a whole new round coming though. We don't know the rules yet, but there's pretty hefty allocations out there for some places anyway.
Yep.
Another bill came out, House Bill 1191. That was an act to allow expedited process for local intergovernmental legal disputes. I think, Yvonne, you had a lot of interaction on that bill, and then Lauren, chime in afterwards. Tell us about that one.
Yeah, it provides for an expedited process. It came out of Spearfish, one of their new legislators, and there have been some pretty nasty things out there with, I think, between the city and a sanitary district maybe, or I don't know exactly what, but it got amended in the Senate to take any kind of binding arbitration out of the picture. So we were glad about that, and then it passed through. I'm not sure it's going to have a great big impact. I think the circumstances where you're in a actual lawsuit with another local entity are fairly rare, but it's out there. So.
Lauren, do you have any interaction with that one?
Well, not a great deal, but there was another one that and I'm going to tie it to what I'll call intergovernmental disputes. This had to do with tree farms, and one in which I don't know if Yvonne got too involved in it, but what's a tree farm? The Department of Revenue was trying to make some adjustments for taxing purposes, but to not dive into that particular issue so much, but that again, personalities play a role in more legislation than one would like to think. And the one having to do with, what's a tree farm and how big is it and all of that from a Department of Revenue standpoint and property taxes. The fight was between, a legislator and county commissioner. And the legislator had been Yvonne, help me. Kurt Chafee. He was the county
assessor
assessor,
out in Meade County.
In Meade County. And there was somebody in Lawrence County was mad at him about something. And so that played into several different county municipal discussions. And again, it's I think in some cases, the ability for elected officials to find reasons not to agree about something when it can help both of them or helps one and doesn't affect the other. It seems to me that there's a little bit more of that kind of activity or animosity than in the past. But Yvonne would maybe be a little closer to that than I am. But those kinds of things, then it starts to spread out throughout the legislature, and it becomes us and them, and it can really be a very local issue.
I guess going back around to the intergovernmental dispute bill, just to give you an idea what the County Commissioner Association and Municipal League, and I guess my involvement with all that as well, to give you an idea what happens. For the intergovernmental dispute bill, I certainly had that on my desk and radar. And I talked with Yvonne and Bob quite a bit about that bill in particular. I used to practice in civil litigation, but honestly, I haven't done it extensively for the last 11 years. So I reached out to several public sector area lawyers and private practice lawyers to find out how the civil dispute process for disputes that are less than $75,000, that's what it was modeled after. I reached out to them, and we wanted to make sure that this was practical and acceptable for those of you who are certainly in the civil litigation arena on a daily basis. And we wanted to make sure that was something that you folks could live with. We found out it was, and then certainly that information was passed on to Bob and Yvonne. So again, we're all in this together is kind of what I'd like to summarize that discussion on. If you've ever got an issue for one of your clients, if you ever have something that you think needs a fix, Yvonne and Bob, and sorry, Lauren, you're retired. We'll miss you.
Right.
But they are a great resource because no matter what bill is put forward, those two organizations are going to be asked, what do you guys think of this? They can run it through several committees. For instance, the State's Attorneys Association or the Municipal Attorneys Association. And they can get a lot of input, ideas, many sets of eyes reviewing anything, and it really aids the process. I know at times it can seem daunting, especially if you are seeing an email or a text from Yvonne at 7 or Bob at 7 in the morning, and we need something on this by 7:30. They rarely do that to you, but if they do, take the time to look at it. It is well worth it. You could save yourself years of headaches for yourself and also for your public entity clients. So at any time, I just encourage you, please reach out to any one of us. We're here to help you. Our life is public service. This is what we do. And we want to help the legislature in their mission of passing or not passing, as it may be, a particular legislation that would affect all of our clients. So that's my plug on that one.
Well, and David, in response, follow up a little bit on that as well. And again, Yvonne is closer to this than I am because she and Bob are the execs of the associations, but they do work closely together, as you were saying. And there are, based on my observations, I would say from the outside, there are times where some of these intergovernmental disputes in a certain part of the state or a certain community in whatever county, things come up and it gets to the two executive offices, and they're able to sort through some of that, and they can they find that, well, we had a similar problem here or there, and they get those things worked out internally without having to bring it to the legislature. And in my years of experience out there, even though as a contract lobbyist, it's what I do, legislation should almost be looked at as a last resort, because it's not, it's not infrequent, but most legislative things, many that have come forward they're revisiting an old issue. and there's maybe a reason why it wasn't fixed, or the dynamic has changed and now's a good time to bring something forward. But oftentimes legislation results comes about just because some folks can't get along and sit down and figure it out. And they figure, well, we'll take it to the legislature. And depending on what your dispute is, that's the last place on the planet you'd want to have your dispute taken to.
Yeah.
One of my
I
least
think
favorite, oh, sorry, Yvonne, go ahead.
No, I think the worst example of that this year was the flagpole in Dakota Dunes, where they came in and actually legislated covenants because some lady wanted to fly her flag and the homeowners association didn't allow it.
Yeah.
So it
One of my
just,
least
I mean, you
favorite
couldn't get
phrases
more
is-
local than that.
One of my least favorite phrases is "there ought to be a law." That just gets me to cringe immediately. No, there shouldn't be. You know, the thing you learn through law school with statutory interpretation is, and certainly any interpretation of a written word, it's called the death of the author. And it's fascinating to talk to people who have drafted legislation and it's gone through the process and what they intended. And then months or years later, after it's enacted, a court or an official will be interpreting it far differently than how they intended it. So it's almost that unintended consequences or a alternative interpretation that really can cause a lot of problems on something legislative on the surface that seems innocuous. It can cause a lot more trouble than you think it can. I still want to allow enough time for any questions. Anybody else? A chat room or pipe up too. We'd love to see a face and hear some voices. You never know how many people you're talking with or so forth. Matt, is there anything you've been hearing from some of the section members that you wanted addressed today?
Well, I just kind of had just more of a general question for the lobbyists. In your experience, are the legislators you talk one-on-one with, are they typically pretty forthright about their opinions, or do they get evasive if you're lobbying for something they disagree with and just ignore you, or do they interact and say, hey, I disagree with you, leave me alone? I mean, how do those interactions typically go?
It's pretty, my approach is just go ask, here's this issue, what are you thinking on that? And they're pretty good about telling you. But we're not a group that gets terribly nasty with the people that disagree with us either. So I've found them basically to be, sometimes you'll get told something because it's easy for them to say it, and then they'll flip on you. But you learn to remember who those folks are. But mostly I think they tell you what they're thinking.
Yeah, I think that's a good assessment. And if you've been out there for a while, and I'm sure Yvonne, I know Yvonne is the same way. After you watch legislators for a while, or you hear about them from people that you trust when they get out there, depending on what your issue is, you might have some sense of what the direction that the conversation is going to go when you go up to ask them, even if it's the first time. And so it's not necessarily that you're often surprised, by their response. Sometimes it's immediate. Sometimes it's give me some information. Let's visit later. Sometimes they're good with it. And you can also pick up pretty quickly that they don't care about it one way or another. However it goes, and they may or may commit on that or may not. But after watching them for a while, you get a sense of what direction they're headed in.
So dovetailing on that, Matt, if I can, why don't each of you briefly describe how how your work has been with lawyer legislators, and I do that with anticipation that we want to encourage state bar members to run for the legislature and to certainly realize the unique input and experience that they could really provide for the legislative process.
I would say with one notable exception, they're generally better members, a more serious sense of what they're actually doing. Certainly smart enough to have a good conversation about almost anything. I think we've had pretty good luck with the attorney members. More would not be bad.
Yeah, I would agree with Yvonne. My experience over the years is that the lawyers understand the procedural aspects of it. And I think that they also try and help their legislative peers with that. And that's a really important part of what happens out there. At the same time, you know, they like all of us, they have their own perspectives and whatnot. One of the things that I always find amazing is that you can, whether they're legislators or lobbyists, if you've got 6 lawyers in the room and you're going to ask them a question, a legal question, and ask for an answer, you'll get 6 different answers. And one of the examples that I use when I'm talking to people is contributory negligence. And I listen, and I'll tell you the lawyers that, you know, have been on different sides of that. Roger Tellinghusen has represented trial lawyers in the past, and Dick Teason has represented an insurance industry for a number of years out there. Both good lawyers, people who I mean, I trust their judgment on things. They're longtime friends. Roger Tellinghusen will tell me his position on contributory negligence, and I'll walk away from that saying, I get it. Dick Teason will tell me his position on contributory negligence, and I'll walk away from that conversation saying, well, that's completely different, but I get it. And so I still don't know what it means.
You're giving me some nervous anxiety all of a sudden from a final exam in torts class, Lauren. For that very question. Not an easy one. Is there anyone else that has any questions of any kind? Well, we've got these two here. And again, this is probably Lauren's last time that he'll be talking about lobbying.
Yeah.
Hi,
I'm
Jeff.
lucky. Yeah, yeah, you bet.
Oh,
It's
well,
been
we have
fun.
these-
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Matt, I'll turn it back over to you.
I guess I have nothing else to add. I just want to thank the panelists and Dave for being here, and the multiple Tracys for being here. And I hope it was an enjoyable lunch period for you all. And look forward to seeing everybody that can attend at the bar convention.
Date of the bar convention, just so people remember, because we do have our program and we do have our city attorney's meeting. We have that June, what is it, the 17th, 18th? 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock is the general council discussion, views from City Hall. We have Justin and Joel and Stacy presenting from 2 to 3 o'clock on municipality issues. And then we have our city attorney meeting on, what is it, Thursday at noon, Matt? Maybe you can give the dates and times and give.
Yeah, thanks, Lisa. That's a good idea to put a plug in here. So they're actually, so for the public sector members, which is the public sector section as a whole, will be meeting at 11 o'clock on Thursday of the bar convention. Then I believe at 11:30, if there's any school lawyers on the line, I think there's a school lawyers meeting at 11:30. Noon is a joint luncheon amongst the city attorneys, the public sector, and the school attorneys. And then 12:30 until the discussion ends will be the city attorney's meeting. So again, 11 o'clock a.m. for the public sector section annual meeting that's required by our bylaws. And then a 12:30 meeting directly following the joint luncheon for the city attorneys.
Can I put a shameless plug in for me? If you guys go to the business meeting, I'd appreciate your vote for president-elect position. Unopposed right now, but there's always write-ins, so I gotta get as many friends as I can there, so. thanks.
Lisa, I've only known you since we were 13 years old, and I don't know if I know you well enough yet to vote for you.
Dave, you're supposed to give me an endorsement here.
This will be
In
good.
all honesty, I trust you with my life, my friend. Of course you'll get my vote.
This will be good. You cut your teeth as president of the bar, and then in a few years you can run for the legislature and talk to Yvonne out there.
I'd love it.
For those who serve in the legislature, I can't say that that's on my list to do.
Well, this is Lauren. I'd like to know what Tracy thinks about that.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you again, everybody.
You bet. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for pinch hitting, Lauren. Appreciate that.
You bet. No problem.
Right.
Enjoyed
I
it.
gotta make a plug for the Star Wars fans. This is a Darth Vader tie. It's May the 4th be with you. So get your
It
Star Wars
is.
out right now if you forgot.
There you go. Thanks so much.